In this video we're going to look at functions. Now functions are very important in programming. They allow us to create some code that we can then save and use at a later point in our program. It also allows us to repeat code with maximum efficiency. And what I mean by this is we can create a block of code that's say 15 lines long, and if we wanted to run it twice we could use one line to run it once, another line to run it twice, and overall we've used 17 lines. Whereas if we were to have 15 lines and we wanted to run it twice without functions, obviously you copy and paste those 15 lines and we get 30. So as your program gets much bigger, with into the hundreds, maybe thousands of lines long, it's very important we use functions to maximize the efficiency of our program. So getting into it, to define a function in Python we type def, and you should see it turn orange, and def is short for define because we're defining a function. So from here we can give it a name, and in this example I'm going to be printing some names, so I'm just going to type print name. We then open and close a bracket and add a colon on the end, and as soon as we hit enter after here you're going to notice it's tabbed across. Okay, it hasn't gone all the way to the left here, and this is because any code that we want to put inside of a function needs to be tabbed by 1. And what I mean by 1 is if I press left on my keyboard and go right to the end, you can see this is our position of our function, and any code must be 1 tabbed space along. So if we were to type some code in here such as print hello, I'm just going to run through a quick example. So we've got our define our function, it's called print name, and inside of our function it's going to be just printing the text hello. So if we give this a run, save it, okay, bring this over here, we can see it has done nothing. And the reason for this is, like I said, we can create a block of code that we can use at a later point, so it won't run the code unless we tell it to. So in order to tell it to, we must onto a new line. I'm just going to go down 2 new lines so it separates it and it's a bit easier to understand, and you'll see it's still tabbed along. If I press the backspace, it'll take us back to that left hand side. Okay, so from here I'm going to type print name because that's the name of our function that I want to run, and I'm just going to open and close brackets. Now hit F5. It's going to print the code that's inside of our function, because what it's going to do is it's going to read this, it's going to say, right, okay, this is a function, I've not been told to run yet, so I'm going to ignore this line. I'm going to get to this line and it's going to tell, I'm telling the program then to run a function, so it's going to go looking for a function called print name. It'll look back in the code, it'll see a function called print name, and it'll go, right, I need to execute the code that's inside this function. Simple enough. So I'm just going to expand on this a little bit. So I'm going to say, hello, what is your name? Question mark. Next line. Okay, so you notice whenever we type a full line in and we get to the end and hit enter, it'll still stay tabbed along because we're still inside that function. Here I'm going to input the user's name, and we're going to store it in a variable called name. And to do this we just have name is equal to input. Finally I'm going to print out a greeting, hello, comma, space, close our quotes, plus symbol, and we're going to add our variable because we want to add it to this whole print string. So now when we run it, it's going to have 3 extra lines of code to run. So okay, hello, what is your name? It's going to wait for an input, type Tom, hit enter, it's going to say hello Tom. Simple enough. So as I said before, if this program became, let's just say, a few extra lines long, we can do an example print what day is it today, question mark. Okay, I don't think a computer would ever ask this, but day equals input, open close brackets, and it's going to print yes, today is space, close quotes, add our variable, and now if we run it, let's just make sure it works. Okay, So it's going to say, hello, what's your name? Tom. What day is it today? Today is Thursday. At the time of recording this video, it will be different when you're watching this. Oh yes, today is Thursday. So, to explain my point, if I wanted to have this code for whatever reason repeated twice, or maybe even 3 times, before we had functions, we'd have to copy this code and we'd have to paste it below it. So, just to print it twice, let's copy all of this, Control C, next line Control V, just bring that back one. You can see here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We've got 12 lines of code. And we've obviously got it once here calling the function. So, if we wanted to print this twice using functions, we can just copy this line here. And we've immediately gone from what was, how many lines we have here? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we did have 6, 7, 8. We had 14 lines of code. Now we have 10. Okay, so it's only a small difference, only 4 lines, but as I said earlier, when you start to program and make bigger programs, you could be into the hundreds, maybe thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of lines of code. And any way you can reduce that number, it's going to be beneficial to the program. So if we run this now, it's going to be long, but hello, what's your name? Tom. What day is it today? Thursday. And it's going to repeat it again. And all we've had to do is enter 1 extra line of code to repeat that block of code we had previously. So there's one more thing I would like to show you. I'm going to get rid of this here. From here we can actually make this even shorter. And when we use functions, we have the ability to pass information into the function. Okay, so imagine this function's in a bubble and we can pass information in. So I'm going to get rid of this line here, name input, and I'm going to get rid of this line here, be called hello, what's your name? So all we've got left is hello plus name. So we're thinking, well, where do we ask the question and where do we get the person's name from? Well, down here in the function call text, inside these brackets we can pass information in. So whatever's inside these brackets will get put inside of these brackets, and then obviously we can use whatever's inside of these brackets in our code later on. So I'm going to start at this point here, and I'm going to say that the input from the user, so open close brackets, open close quote marks, I'm going to say hello, comma, what is your name? I'm going to add a colon, space. So it's going to print out on the screen, hello, what's your name? It's also going to wait for the user to input it, and then once we've done that, it's going to use the information that we've typed in. It's going to look up our function called print name, and it's going to take along with it whatever we typed in. So to pass it through, we need to have a variable in these brackets to receive that information. So just for keep it simple, I'm just going to type name, and as you can see here, we've already got a variable called name. So it's going to get passed into name here, and then our line of code here is going to look at what's in here, in this variable here, and it's going to print that. So if I wanted to, I could delete that line, just separating it, and we're down to 3 lines of code, whereas before we were at 5 or 6. So if I run it now, it's going to have exactly the same output. Hello, what's your name? Tom. Hello, Tom. And we've done that in significantly less lines of code.